Hello. I'm going to talk to you today about clauses, which we can define as word groups including both subjects and verbs. Clauses can serve particular functions by taking different forms, and in this lecture we'll look at three kinds of clauses and what they do. We'll also try to take a look at how they're formed. First, let's consider the independent clause, which expresses a thought completely. It does its job of telling a story all by itself. As you may have noticed, you already have encountered this idea of an independent clause. In fact, every complete sentence is an independent clause. As a clause, a sentence includes both a subject and a verb. All sentences, in fact, include both subjects and verbs. And as an independent clause, all sentences express a thought completely. And so you see that every sentence is a clause. However, not every clause is a sentence. In fact, some clauses depend on another clause to complete their meanings. And for that reason, we call these clauses the clauses that can't quite become sentences of their own, dependent clauses. For example, if I say to you, when I practice writing, and just stop there, you'd want to know more. You'd be curious, what happens when I practice writing? What are you trying to say to me, Charles? In saying that to you, I've used a dependent clause which expresses only part of a thought. And in that way, it works as part of a sentence. I would need an independent clause to finish this thought and give you the information you need about what happens when I practice writing. Whether I get better at writing when I practice writing, or I go to sleep when I practice writing, or I bite my fingernails when I practice writing, you don't know because I haven't given you a complete thought. We'll see in the next module how you can put these two kinds of clauses together, the independent and the dependent, to make sentences that can express more complex thoughts. Now, finally, I'd like to consider a kind of clause that serves an entirely different purpose. The relative clause uses its subject and verb, the ability to tell a story that a clause has, because it has a subject and verb, to work as a complicated adjective to give more information about a noun. For example, if I mention a car, I could be thinking of any car, and so it's difficult for you, my reader, to really understand what I'm trying to convey to you. But if I say something about the car that delivered the pizza, you know that I'm thinking of a single particular car, and so you are more likely to think of the same car that I'm thinking of because I added the information in the relative clause. That delivered the pizza is a clause that describes which car I'm talking about. Relative clauses also share the feature of starting with a relative pronoun, which we can think of as a word that points to a noun, the way that points to car. The nice thing about relative pronouns is that you don't have to memorize any more than 3 of them. In English, the relative pronouns are that, which, and who or whom, which are pretty much the same word, except that they're used in different cases. We can talk more about that if you're interested in really discussing pronouns. Seeing one of these relative pronouns can let you know that you're about to see a relative clause, and using one of them is a way to signal to your reader that you're about to use a relative clause. I hope that this brief introduction to the way clauses work will help you as you keep reading and writing. As we proceed in this class, you're going to look at ways in which you can expand sentences by combining clauses in various ways. We'll start looking at that in the next module. Readers of English tend to use clauses to organize the way they understand sentences, so you can use them in the same way to organize your own sentences and thereby help yourself communicate more easily and efficiently with your reader. As always, thank you for your time and attention.